Maybe that's a question for Matthew. Like, at what point do you know that you want to take a left turn and go into 3D printing?
No, it's a good question. And I think it's part of I think the way we all probably face the world is that we're all intensely curious. And so making work really is just about curiosity and um, just sort of following your intuition. And I saw a couple of 3D printers at one point working, um, but I also was seeing the output. A lot of sort of early 3D printing was just sort of small tchotchkes that you had this beautiful invention with all this potential, and it was just these really uninteresting little sort of keychain elements. Star Wars. It's really uninteresting. So I saw that potential, um, and got really curious and was able to I got a Mellon Foundation grant that allowed me to kind of pursue that idea. I just never really knew what the output might be, but I just kept thinking about what the potential was. And really the basis of the idea was geometry, and the kind of geometry I was thinking about in my paintings. So just a lot of linear elements, but then what would that look like three-dimensionally? And then to kind of learn some rudimentary kind of file making, kind of building files. But once that was done, there was a real scale limitation. And so to solve that problem, I just began to make multiples without ever thinking about what that final object or image might look like. So I just continued to print essentially hundreds of these small files. So the piece behind Joe is made up of a number of files that is probably about 6 by 7 inches, roughly by 3 inches. And I began to print stacks of those before I started to step back and think about what those might become. And so it's the idea of multiples that was really the idea that you could get the sort of exact same object, made by this tool. And so that's really where it was. And it may have not gone anywhere, but it just so happens that they began to suggest themselves in terms of creating kind of a pictorial images. So that's really where that came from. It's really just the kind of the curiosity and speculative thought that goes into everything that each one of us does.
You also, Matthew, I think, have found that those can take light in a very interesting way also. So that may be something else that you're working with.
That's right. And in terms of a surface, they take a projection really beautifully. And so that structure that's behind Joe, I've made some sort of larger rectangles just out of that sort of white material. And it takes a projection beautifully. The light sort of moves through those openings, hits the wall and comes back out, and is sort of refracted on those interiors in a lot of interesting way. And that was simply one of those small accidents. I had the material there and just thought I would give it a try. The material also takes paint beautifully, and I'm painting those files as well. So there's a lot of interesting other things that kind of come out of that initial idea that we just don't anticipate. But once they're there, new things begin to suggest themselves. And I think it's a really kind of valuable, kind of fertile way to work.
But what started as a sculpture seems to be acting more like a substrate.
It's more like a what, Jim?
A substrate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely. There's combined, when I combine the white with the black, it suggests more of a pictorial kind of graphic option for a composition. but now it's a beautiful substrate for a projection. And again, like I said, it takes paint really beautifully as well. So there's another way of using it. Yeah.